Cruz.
Secretary Mayorkas, you testified several times that our immigration system is, quote, fundamentally broken. True or false, under President Trump, we saw the lowest rate of illegal immigration in 45 years.
I don't know if it's within 45 years, but we certainly saw in 2020 a low level of illegal immigration. 2019 was
okay.
very high.
True or false, Secretary Mayorkas? This year, under Joe Biden, we've seen the highest rate of illegal immigration in 61 years.
Again, I don't know the number of years, but it's certainly a historic high, Senator.
So you're right, it's broken, but you broke it. Let me ask you, in the calendar year 2021, how many illegal immigrants do you expect to have crossed illegally into the United States?
I believe the total number of encounters, as has been referenced in this hearing earlier, is approximately just under 1.7 million.
But there's 2 months remaining. Is it correct that you project over 2 million illegal immigrants in 2021, calendar year 2021?
I believe that is correct, Senator, and over the last 3 months, we've seen a drop in the numbers by reason.
And how many children do you project in 2021?
I'm sorry?
How many children will have crossed illegally in 2021?
I believe that thus far, through October 31st, Senator, approximately 125,000 unaccompanied children have been transferred to the shelter and care of Health and Human Services.
Now, you told another senator you don't know how many gotaways there have been?
I will have to circle back, Senator, with that information. Yes.
So that wasn't a fact that you thought was relevant to this hearing?
Oh, it is absolutely relevant. I understand why the question is posed. It's a fact of great...
Okay, but you're not prepared to answer it. How about this? How many deaths, how many illegal aliens have died crossing illegally into the United States under Joe Biden's administration?
I don't have that data.
So the deaths, you didn't prepare that data either. All right, how about this? How many children have been in the Biden cages in calendar year 2021?
Senator, I respectfully disagree with your use of the term cages.
Fine, you can disagree with it. How many children have been in the Biden cages? I've been to the Biden cages. I've seen the Biden cages. How many children have you detained at the Donna Tent facility in the cages you built to hold kids? How many children have been in those cages?
Senator, I can provide to you the following figure that when, and let me say, that when a child...
it's a simple question. How many children have been in those cages?
I respectfully am not familiar with the term cages and to what you are referring. There are
enclosures in which they are locked in which I took photographs and put them out because you blocked the press and didn't want people to see the Biden cages. The secure facilities in which they are locked down in Donna, those facilities, how many children have been in them?
Senator, there are 3 types of facilities. There's
the Donna Tent cages, the Donna Tent City. Let's take the Donna facility. How many children have been there?
That is a soft-sided facility. It is not a...
Okay, are you going to answer the question, how many children have been in that facility?
I will have to circle back with you with a precise number.
Oh, by the way, here's a photograph of the Biden cages.
That, Senator, that is precisely why I articulated...
Children sleeping on floors, crashed in upon each other. When I took this photograph, the rate of COVID positivity was over 10%.
May I speak, Senator?
You can answer the question. How many kids have been in these conditions?
That is precisely why I stated in March of this year that a Border Patrol station is no place for a child, number 1.
Okay, but
number 2,
all right,
that is precisely...
Secretary Mayorkas, you're not answering my question, so let me ask you this. In the past year, has Joe Biden been down to see firsthand the Biden cages?
Senator, I will again...
Has Joe Biden been down to see this facility? Yes or no?
The president has not been down to the...
Okay, no. Has Kamala Harris been down to see the Biden cages, this facility? Yes or no?
The vice president was at the border...
Has she been down to see this facility? I know she went to El Paso. Has she seen the Biden cages?
They are not cages, and...
what are these walls?
Senator,
has Kamala Harris seen them? Yes or no?
Senator,
it's a simple question. Yes or no? We don't need a paragraph. Yes or no? Has Kamala Harris been down to see these detention facilities?
She has not been down.
Okay. Has any Democratic senator on this committee been down to see the Biden cages?
I will once again disagree with your use of terminology.
These facilities, has any Democratic member of this committee given a damn enough to see the children being locked up by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris because of your failed immigration policies.
Senator, I cannot speak to the members of this committee.
You don't know if any Democrats have been down there?
I believe Democrats have been down
To see this facility, yes or no?
on a facility. Whether they are members of this committee, I do not know. And
All right, let me
if I
ask you a
may
different question
actually
then.
say that what we do
How many women have been sexually assaulted being trafficked into this country in 2021?
Senator, I have no ability to determine how many
Okay, you don't know, so you didn't try to find out?
have been sexually assaulted in Mexico along the migratory.
All right, how about this? How many children have been sexually assaulted by traffickers or other people when they were coming in illegally?
I do not have that data.
Okay, so you don't know that either. Let me ask you this. How many illegal immigrants have you released into the United States who were COVID positive?
Senator, it is our policy to test individuals.
I didn't ask your policy. How many illegal aliens have you released who are COVID positive?
Well, let me just say, when they are released, they are placed in immigration.
How many have you released that were COVID positive?
I will have to get that number.
Okay, you don't have that answer either. All right, let's try this. How many illegal aliens have you released who had criminal convictions?
Who have criminal convictions in Mexico? In the
Criminal convictions in whatever jurisdiction.
those individuals, if they pose a public safety threat.
How many individuals with criminal convictions have you released?
Senator, I do not have that.
Okay,
number.
let's specify it more narrowly. How many murderers have you released?
I'm not aware of any murderers whom.
How many rapists have you released?
I'm not aware of any rapists whom.
How many child molesters have you released?
I am not aware of any child molesters whom we have released into the United States, and I should say that
Senior Customs and Border Patrol leadership have told me that your agency is slow walking and refusing to comply with the order from the federal court to return to the Remain in Mexico policy. What would you say to the judge if the judge was asking why you should not be held in contempt and incarcerated for defying a federal court order?
It is because we are implementing the court's order in good faith. We are working with Mexico. It requires a bilateral relationship and an agreement. And I should also add.
Have you or anyone on your staff expressed to Mexico to resist going back to this agreement?
No. And I should also indicate to you, Senator, that Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, under the sex offenders operation known as SOAR, apprehended 495 individuals between June 4th and September 1st who committed sex offenses, and we're very focused on public safety.
Thank you, Senator Cruz. Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That our immigration system is broken is an understatement, and this broken.
Senator Hirono. Senator Hawley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Mayorkas, nice to see you again. You've testified several times already this morning that you have, I'm going to quote you now, rigorous screening and vetting in place. Rigorous is your word for Afghan evacuees, refugees who have tens of thousands of them who have been brought to this country after the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan that this administration conducted, historically disastrous, I might add, in which 13 American service members were killed, including one from my home state, hundreds, maybe thousands of Americans left behind to the enemy, where they still remain. It's your testimony that rigorous screening and vetting has occurred. So I assume that you mean by that at least the standard refugee screening process is, if it's rigorous, it's at least the standard refugee screening process. Is that correct? Am I right about that?
Senator, I do think it deviates from the refugee screening, but we have taken steps to make sure that the program is indeed rigorous, and I use that term advisedly.
Yeah, I noted that you used it advisedly. It deviates, though, from the standard screening procedures. You're conducting in-person interviews of all of the refugees per the standard procedures. You testified that 100% of these people have been screened and vetted. So you're conducting in-person interviews per the standard procedures of all of these refugees?
Senator, our U.S. Customs and Border Protection personnel have physical contact and question each individual at the port of entry. If there is any question with respect to that individual, any derogatory information or any question that bears on the individual's safety, the safety of the American people, that individual can be placed in secondary.
Well, wait a minute. That's not my question. My question is, are you conducting the standard security procedure? Is the standard screening procedure for refugees is they are given an in-person interview to find out, for example, if they're a terrorist. So you said 100% of these evacuees are screened. Have they all been given in-person interviews per the normal process?
They have not all been given
Why not?
interviews because we have to be mindful of the fact that we were in an emergency situation to evacuate U.S. citizens, lawful permanent residents, special immigrant visa holders, and others who have
And what
on
percentage
site.
do those, the special immigrant visa holders and American citizens, what percentage of the total tens of thousands did those constitute?
I have that information for you. If you'll give me 1 minute.
The answer is it's an extremely small percentage. I mean, it's maybe a few thousand out of 60,000 who have come to this country. So my question is, why are you not conducting in-person interviews of the people who have been brought here to this country? Don't you think that's dangerous?
I do not, Senator. I think that if, in fact, there is information adduced that gives any cause for concern, number one, the individual is not brought to the United States.
Well, wait a minute. When you say that, I just want to be clear about this. When you say any information, you mean if they are already in our database as a terrorist or a criminal or a terrorist affiliate, right?
Senator, we capture the biometric and biographic information of the individuals in the transit countries.
Right, and if I understand that, and if they're in our databases already as a terrorist or a terrorist affiliate or a known criminal, then maybe you're saying there's a fault. Then maybe they get an interview. But what about that's fine. But what about the thousands, tens of thousands of people who aren't already in our database? The people who we don't know who they are, have they been interviewed?
Senator, what we do is we capture their biographic and biometric information. We screen.
That's
them.
like a fingerprint.
A fingerprint, a photograph, biographic information, and we run it against our databases in our law enforcement intelligence and other holdings.
But you're not interviewing them, Mr. Secretary. It's not unless they're already in our database that you then bother to interview them. Do you know how many of the 9/11 hijackers, the 20 who tried to enter this country, do you know how many of them were given an in-depth interview by a trained official?
If I may walk through the process.
No, this is an important question. Do you know how many of the hijackers were given an in-depth interview?
I do not.
One. The answer is one. That person did not enter the country. The others were not given an interview. We know the outcome. For that reason, the 9/11 Commission recommended in-person interviews for all refugees and others brought to this country in these circumstances. That was 20 years ago. That's why the standard procedure is an in-person interview for refugees or visa applicants. Now, you've testified that you're not doing those interviews.
Not at all.
That they're not happening.
No, if I may.
You have just testified. You just said that they are not being interviewed unless they're already in our system as a known terrorist.
No.
That would have captured none of the 9/11 hijackers.
If I may, Senator, that is not, and I apologize if I was not clear. You are correct that we are not conducting in-person full refugee interviews of 100% of the individuals.
What
that
percentage
brought
are you
here.
conducting?
I don't have that information.
What number have been
What we-
interviewed?
What we are doing.
Wait. What number of the more than 60,000 brought to the country, what number have received an in-person interview before they came to the country? Because you said 100% are screened. So what percentage have been given an actual interview by a trained official before they come to the country?
When you're speaking of a full refugee-like interview, I don't have that data. I will tell
Why
you
not?
that-
Are you not tracking it?
No, I don't have that data with me.
Why? I hear you. I understand what that means,
Yeah.
but why don't you? Are you not tracking it?
No, we have data in the Department of Homeland Security. You're asking me what data I have at my fingerprints?
Well, why don't you have it? You run the Department of Homeland Security. Why do you not know who has been interviewed or not before they're brought to this country? By the way, are you following what's happening to people who've been brought to this country? On September 19th, a female U.S. service member was assaulted by a group of male Afghan evacuees housed at Fort Bliss. September 5th, a report from your office, the DHS, from U.S. officials at intake centers in Wisconsin identified numerous incidents in which Afghan girls had been presented to authorities as the underage wives of much older men. other reports of assaults and rapes by Afghan men for Afghan girls. These are some of the folks who have been brought here because they haven't been screened, because you haven't conducted interviews. Don't you think that's a problem?
Senator, those individuals have been screened, as I spoke of previously. And let me share
You interviewed them.
Let me share with you that if an individual violates a condition of parole, there are two things that can happen. They can be criminally prosecuted depending on the reason for their violation.
Mr. Secretary, my time's
they
expired.
can-
I've got to turn it over to other senators. I just want to say the fact that you are not conducting the most standard interviews for tens of thousands of people brought to this country is astounding to me. And it seems to me you've not learned the most basic lessons that we learned on 9/11 since then. And the security risk is unbelievable. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just to complete the response and to clarify.
Senator Lee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. Moments ago, you said you gave yourself an A, maybe an A for effort on dealing with workforce issues at the Department of Homeland Security. I know that's important. You rely on your people. Now, you've got about 17,000 Border Patrol agents. Is that right?
I'm sorry, we have about 16, 17,000 on the border.
On the border, on the border. So
on the southern border.
let's talk about those for a minute. 16, 17,000 on the southern border. What happens, and this ties back to your desire to give yourself an A for effort on dealing with workforce issues, but what happens when you've got potentially thousands of those, a pretty large percentage, who might soon become ineligible to work based on their vaccination status? Does that hurt or help our operational control of the border?
Senator, I hope that doesn't prove to be the case. We are seeing a tremendous uptick in the number of Border Patrol agents along the southern border who are indeed receiving their vaccinations. I hope that does not materialize.
Oh, well, yes, you hope, but do you have a plan for
we
maintaining this?
Oh,
Would you be willing to share that plan with us in writing in the next 2 weeks?
I would most certainly be pleased to do so.
I appreciate that. And on the topic of workforce relations, on which you give yourself an A for effort, what about the issue with your Border Patrol agents recently being accused by some folks in the media of whipping illegal immigrants, when in fact they were not? Why on earth did you not defend them? I mean, has no one in your entire department ever become aware of how one uses split reins when riding a horse?
Oh, Senator, let me say two things. Number one, I put 100% into my work, and I'm incredibly proud to do so. That's number one. Number two, I stand with the men and women of our department through and through, and I will not prejudge facts before.
Did you defend them when they were being attacked for whipping people, which they were not?
Senator, what I said quite clearly is that the independent investigation will determine the facts, and those facts will drive the outcome.
Okay.
Nothing less and nothing more.
Your response and your failure to defend them, then and now, is nothing short of morale crushing. If you want to maintain or obtain operational control of the border, which you do not now have, this is not a way to get there. Now the Department of Homeland Security's website, the whole reason for its existence, to a significant degree, involves a statement that's on your website of your department that states as follows, quote, managing the flow of people and goods into the United States is critical to maintaining our national security. Illegal aliens compromise the security of our nation by illegally entering the United States or overstaying their authorized period of admission, close quote. How is the department doing in that mission to maintain that operational control of the border?
Senator, we are enforcing the laws that Congress passed, and there are different types of laws, if I may. There are the laws of accountability, and there are the laws of humanitarian relief. Individuals who make a claim for asylum, who are encountered upon illegal crossing at the border, are placed into immigration enforcement proceedings, are able to make their claim for asylum before an immigration judge, and if their claim is successful, under the law, they are able to stay here. If their claim is unsuccessful, then they are removed from the United States.
Okay, so between January 1st and September 30th of this year, just the time period in which President Biden has been in office, there have been about 1.7 million illegal crossers that have been encountered at our southern border. And so this doesn't suggest to me operational control. This does suggest to me an administration that's willing to push on the pull factors that Senator Cornyn mentioned, accelerating them into the turn. It also is reflected in the Build Back Better plan with the full support of your administration, which paves a path for granting amnesty, turning on more of those pull factors. By the way, how many known gotaways have crossed our southern border in 2021?
Senator, I'll have to provide that number to you. I will certainly circle back with you or your team expeditiously. I don't think that the approximately 965,000 people who were subject to Title 42 expulsions under the CDC's authority would consider the border open. I don't think the 40,000 or so individuals who were removed under the United States would consider the border.
Yes, sir. I understand that, and that's great, and I appreciate the great work done by the men and women serving in your department. Operational control isn't deemed in place because there are some people who have been stopped. Operational control has to be measured by those who are coming in right now at a breakneck, record-breaking pace unlawfully. So here's what I don't understand. Maybe you can help me understand this. Does America have the capacity to help make sure that we take in every person, ill-intentioned or not, who wants to come to America? And what's the real limiting principle there? Because letting 2 million or so people in illegally across our southern border in a year, together with the fact that your administration is backing legislation that turns on more of a magnet, encouraging more people here to come unlawfully, seems consistent with that mindset that it's an unmitigated good.
If I may, Senator, so this will require further discussion, but let me make a few important points, if I may. First of all, there is a misperception that individuals who are encountered at the border and who are not immediately expelled under the Title 42 authority, or who are not subject to expedited removal and accelerated removal process are just let into the United States and left alone. And that is absolutely false.
Well, hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. Some of them are. Some of them aren't. Like Yuri Medina Ulloa, who's a 24-year-old Honduran man who was recently apprehended crossing the U.S.-Mexico border, where he fraudulently claimed to be a 17-year-old. He then ended up in Jacksonville, Florida, where a family took him in. Days later, he stabbed the father of that family to death. He was a 24-year-old, not a 17-year-old, as he claimed. There are people like him crossing, and with the assistance, with the approval, with the facilitation in some cases of your department, these things are happening.
That is inaccurate. I am aware of the case. That individual is being prosecuted. There is an immigration enforcement detainer on that individual.
Did your department or did it not allow him in?
Senator, I'd like to not comment on the details because
I bet you would not like to comment on the details.
If I may, Senator, there is a criminal case against that individual pending. Whether or not that individual committed fraud and deceived our personnel is a question that may be relevant to the ongoing criminal prosecution, and so it would be inappropriate for me to comment on a pending criminal matter at this time.
What's inappropriate is
Thank
for
you,
your
Senator
administration
Lee.
to continue leaving these borders open
Thank you, Senator Lee.
while pushing to turn on the pull factors. That's wrong, and it's immoral, and it's harming the security of the American people.
Was Afghanistan a successful withdrawal?
Senator, the evacuation that the Department of Defense and the Department of State led was historic in evacuating so many individuals.
Of those that are evacuated, how many of them were vetted before they got on the plane?
Senator, it is our policy to vet.
That's a simple question. How many of them were vetted before they got on the plane?
out of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Cannot speak to that, but it is our policy.
So you can't tell us how many people were vetted before they got on the plane to come to America?
Oh, I'm sorry. If you're speaking of the plane to come to America, let me, if I may, Senator, explain the process. Because we, working with our allies,
Okay, here's a question. Very simple. Those that got on the plane,
for America, it is our policy to
please
vet-
listen to my question.
I apologize.
To those who got on the C-17s and other planes, how many of them were vetted before they got on the plane by American officials?
To the United States, it is our policy to vet and screen 100% of them.
So 100% of those people that got on the plane were vetted. That's your testimony under oath.
It is our policy to do so.
That's not, I don't care what your policy is. I'm asking how many people were vetted before they got on the plane. Do you know the answer?
Senator,
If you don't know, just say I don't know.
Senator, I do not know if anyone boarded a plane that was not fully screened and vetted.
Can you tell me that
However,
all
I
the
can-
people that got on the plane were vetted
Absolutely, I can tell you that all of the individuals,
before they got on the plane?
if I may, Senator, all of the individuals who arrived in the United States
Okay?
have been screened and
That's
vetted.
not, listen, I'm not trying to trick you. I'm trying to ask a simple question. We've had thousands of people that got on C-17s and flew out of the most chaotic situation I've seen since the fall of Saigon. And I'm asking you, before they got on the plane, how many of them were vetted by the United States? Can you tell me what percentage?
Senator, I would posit, and I will confirm this, that well over 99% of them were fully screened and vetted before they boarded a flight.
Okay?
If, in fact, any of
Where do
them
you get that information from?
May I, Senator?
Sure.
If, in fact, they were not, they were screened and vetted while in flight, and if any derogatory information was adduced, they were placed in immigration enforcement proceedings and in removal.
Now, you do know you're under oath. Are you
Yes.
telling this committee under oath that 99% of the people who got on these planes in Afghanistan were vetted by our government before they got on that plane?
I want to be very clear because precision.
Because you're not.
No. Senator, if I may, you are asking me about planes from transit countries, the third countries.
I'm talking about people who got on the plane
To
in
the
Kabul
United
Airport.
No, I can't speak to that.
Well, that's, okay, good.